Hello. In the description you have a link to over 500 books about occultism. From astrology, to chemistry. From clairvoyance, to conspiracy theory. Study of the unseen and unknown seems to be on the rise, so for those who are interested in ghosts, UFOs, science versus religion, or almost anything else, check these books out and see if you see the end of the world or the beginning of something much bigger. The occult, in the broadest sense, is a category of supernatural beliefs and practices which generally fall outside the scope of religion and science, encompassing such phenomena involving otherworldly agency as mysticism, spirituality, and magic. It can also refer to supernatural ideas like extrasensory perception and parapsychology. The term occult sciences was used in the 16th century to refer to astrology, alchemy, and natural magic, which today are considered pseudosciences. The term occultism emerged in 19th century France, where it came to be associated with various French esoteric groups connected to Eliphas Levi and Papis, and in 1875 was introduced into the English language by the esotericist Helena Blavatsky. Throughout the 20th century, the term was used idiosyncratically by a range of different authors, but by the 21st century was commonly employed, including by academic scholars of esotericism, to refer to a range of esoteric currents that developed in the mid-19th century and their descendants. Occultism is thus often used to categorize such esoteric traditions as spiritualism, theosophy, anthroposophy, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and New Age. The occult, from the Latin word occultus clandestine, hidden, secret, is knowledge of the hidden. 1. In common usage, occult refers to knowledge of the paranormal, as opposed to knowledge of the measurable. 2. Usually referred to as science. The term is sometimes taken to mean knowledge that is meant only for certain people or that must be kept hidden, but for theosophist Helena Blavatsky it is simply the study of a deeper spiritual reality that extends beyond pure reason and the physical sciences. 3. The terms esoteric and arcane can also be used to describe the occult. 4. 5. In addition to their meanings unrelated to the supernatural. The term occult sciences was used in the 16th century to refer to astrology, alchemy, and natural magic, which today are considered pseudosciences. The earliest known usage of the term occultism is in the French language, as l'occultisme. In this form it appears in A. de Lestrange's article that was published in Jean-Baptiste Richard de Randonvillier's Dictionnaire des mots nouveaux, Dictionary of New Words, in 1842. However, it was not related, at this point, to the notion of esoterism chrétien, as has been claimed by Hanegraaff, 6, but to describe a political system of occulticity that was directed against priests and aristocrats. 7. In 1853, the Freemasonic author Jean-Marie Ragon had already used occultism in his popular work Masonry Occult, relating it to earlier practices that, since the Renaissance, had been termed occult sciences or occult philosophy, but also to the recent socialist teachings of Charles Fourier. 8. The French esotericist Eliphas Levi then used the term in his influential book on ritual magic, Dogme Rituel de la Haute Magie, first published in 1856. 9. Levi was familiar with that work and might have borrowed the term from there. In any case, Levi also claimed to be a representative of an older tradition of occult science or occult philosophy. 10. It was from his usage of the term occultism that it gained wider usage. 11. According to Favor, Levi was the principal exponent of esotericism in Europe and the United States at that time. 12. The term occultism emerged in 19th century France, where it came to be associated with various French esoteric groups connected to Eliphas Levi and Papis. The earliest use of the term occultism in the English language appears to be in A Few Questions to Hierarch, an 1875 article published in the American spiritualist magazine, Spiritual Scientist. The article had been written by Helena Blavatsky, a Russian émigré living in the United States who founded the religion of Theosophy. 13. Various 20th century writers on the subject used the term occultism in different ways. Some writers, such as the German philosopher Theodor W. Adorno in his Theses Against Occultism, employed the term as a broad synonym for irrationality. 14. In his 1950 book Occultism, Robert Amadou used the term as a synonym for esotericism. 15. An approach that the later scholar of esotericism Marco Pazzi suggested left the term superfluous. 14. Unlike Amadou, other writers saw occultism and esotericism as different, albeit related, phenomena. In the 1970s, the sociologist Edward Turiakian distinguished between occultism, which he used in reference to practices, techniques, and procedures, and esotericism, which he defined as the religious or philosophical belief systems on which such practices are based. 15. This division was initially adopted by the early academic scholar of esotericism, in favor, although he later abandoned it. 9. It has been rejected by most scholars who study esotericism. 14. By the 21st century the term was commonly employed, including by academic scholars of esotericism, to refer to a range of esoteric currents that developed in the mid-19th century and their descendants. Occultism is thus often used to categorize such esoteric traditions as spiritualism, theosophy, anthroposophy, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and New Age. A different division was used by the traditionalist author René Guénon, who used esotericism to describe what he believed was the traditionalist, inner teaching at the heart of most religions, while occultism was used pejoratively to describe new religions and movements that he disapproved of, such as spiritualism, theosophy, and various secret societies. 16. Guénon's use of this terminology was adopted by later writers like Sergeant and Luc Benoist. 17. As noted by Hein Graaf, Guénon's use of these terms are rooted in his traditionalist beliefs and cannot be accepted as scholarly valid. 17. The term occultism derives from the older term occult, much as the term esotericism derives from the older term esoteric. 10. However, the historian of esotericism Wouter Hein Graaf stated that it was important to distinguish between the meanings of the term occult and occultism. 18. Occultism is not a homogeneous movement and is widely diverse. 12. Over the course of its history, the term occultism has been used in various different ways. 19. However, in contemporary uses, occultism commonly refers to forms of esotericism that developed in the 19th century and their 20th century derivations. 17. In a descriptive sense, it has been used to describe forms of esotericism which developed in 19th century France, especially in the neo-Martinist environment. 17. According to the historian of esotericism Antoine Favre, it is with the esotericist Eliphas Levi that the occultist current properly so-called first appears. 12. Other prominent French esotericists involved in developing occultism included Pepys, Stanislas de Guaita, Josephine Paladin, Georges Albert Pouvarville, and Jean Bricod. 10. The idea of occult sciences developed in the 16th century. 9. The term usually encompassed three practices: astrology, alchemy, and natural magic, although sometimes various forms of divination were also included rather than being subsumed under natural magic. 9. These were grouped together because, according to the Dutch scholar of Hermeticism Wouter Hein Graaf, each one of them engaged in a systematic investigation of nature and natural processes, in the context of theoretical frameworks that relied heavily on a belief in occult qualities, virtues or forces. 9. Although there are areas of overlap between these different occult sciences, they are separate and in some cases practitioners of one would reject the others as being illegitimate. 9. During the Age of Enlightenment, occultism increasingly came to be seen as intrinsically incompatible with the concept of science. 9. From that point on, use of occult sciences implied a conscious polemic against mainstream science. 9. Nevertheless, the philosopher and card game historian Michael Dummett, whose analysis of the historical evidence suggested that fortune-telling and occult interpretations using cards were unknown before the 18th century, said that the term occult science was not misplaced because people who believe in the possibility of unveiling the future or of exercising supernormal powers do so because the efficacy of the methods they employ coheres with some systematic conception which they hold of the way the universe functions. However flimsy its empirical basis. 20. In his 1871 book Primitive Culture, the anthropologist Edward Tylor used the term occult science as a synonym for magic. In the English-speaking world, prominent figures in the development of occultism included Helena Blavatsky and other figures associated with her Theosophical Society, senior figures in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn like William Wynne Westcott and Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, as well as other individuals such as Pascal Beverly Randolph, Emil Harding Britton, Arthur Edward Wade, and, in the early 20th century, Aleister Crowley, Dion Fortune, and Israel Regardie. 10. By the end of the 19th century, occultist ideas had also spread into other parts of Europe, such as the German Empire, Austria-Hungary, and the Kingdom of Italy. 26. Unlike older forms of esotericism, occultism does not reject scientific progress or modernity. 27. Levi had stressed the need to solve the conflict between science and religion, something that he believed could be achieved by turning to what he thought was the ancient wisdom found in magic. 28. The French scholar of Western esotericism Antoine Favre noted that rather than outright accepting the triumph of scientism, occultists sought an alternative solution, trying to integrate scientific progress or modernity with a global vision that will serve to make the vacuousness of materialism more apparent. 12. The Dutch scholar of Hermeticism Wouter Hanegraaff remarked that occultism was essentially an attempt to adapt esotericism to the disenchanted world, a post-Enlightenment society in which growing scientific discovery had eradicated the dimension of irreducible mystery previously present. In doing so, he noted, occultism distanced itself from the traditional esotericism which accepted the premise of an enchanted world. 29. According to the British historian of Western esotericism Nicholas Goodrick Clarke, occultist groups typically seek proofs and demonstrations by recourse to scientific tests or terminology. 30. In his work about Levi, the German historian of religion Julian Strube has argued that the occultist wish for a synthesis of religion, science, and philosophy directly resulted from the context of contemporary socialism and progressive Catholicism. 31. Similar to spiritualism, but in declared opposition to it, the emergence of occultism should thus be seen within the context of radical social reform, which was often concerned with establishing new forms of scientific religion while at the same time propagating the revival of an ancient tradition of true religion. 32. Indeed, the emergence of both modern esotericism and socialism in July monarchy France have been inherently intertwined. 33. Another feature of occultists is that, unlike earlier esotericists, they often openly distance themselves from Christianity, in some cases, like that of Crowley, even adopting explicitly anti-Christian stances. 28. This reflected how pervasive the influence of secularization had been on all areas of European society. 28. In rejecting Christianity, these occultists sometimes turned towards pre-Christian belief systems and embraced forms of modern paganism, while others instead took influence from the religions of Asia, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. In various cases, certain occultists did both. 28. Another characteristic of these occultists was the emphasis that they placed on the spiritual realization of the individual, an idea that would strongly influence the 20th century New Age and human potential movement. 28. This spiritual realization was encouraged both through traditional Western occult sciences like alchemy and ceremonial magic, but by the start of the 20th century had also begun to include practices drawn from non-Western contexts, such as yoga. 28. Although occultism is distinguished from earlier forms of esotericism, many occultists have also been involved in older esoteric currents. For instance, occultists like François Charles Bartlett and Rudolf Steiner were also theosophers, adhering to the ideas of the early modern Christian thinker Jacob Boehme, and seeking to integrate ideas from Bohemian theosophy and occultism. 34. It has been noted, however, that this distancing from the Theosophical Society should be understood in the light of polemical identity formations amongst esotericists towards the end of the 19th century. 35. Ethic uses of the term. See also, emic and etic. In the 1990s, the Dutch scholar Wouter Graaf put forward a new definition of occultism for scholarly uses. In the mid-1990s, a new definition of occultism was put forth by Wouter Graaf. 36. According to Graaf, the term occultism can be used not only for the 19th century groups which openly self-described using that term but can also be used in reference to the type of esotericism that they represent. 17. Seeking to define occultism so that the term would be suitable as an apt category for scholars, Graaf devised the following definition: a category in the study of religions, which comprises all attempts by esotericists to come to terms with a disenchanted world or, alternatively, by people in general to make sense of esotericism from the perspective of a disenchanted secular world. 37. Graaf noted that this ethic usage of the term would be independent of emic usages of the term employed by occultists and other esotericists themselves. 37. In this definition, occultism covers many esoteric currents that have developed from the mid-19th century onward, including spiritualism, theosophy, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and the New Age. 17. Employing this ethic understanding of occultism, Graaf argued that its development could begin to be seen in the work of the Swedish esotericist Emanuel Swedenborgian and the Mesmerist movement of the 18th century, although added that occultism only emerged in fully developed form as spiritualism, a movement that developed in the United States during the mid-19th century. 29. Marco Pazzi suggested that the use of Graaf's definition might cause confusion by presenting a group of 19th-century esotericists who called themselves occultists as just one part of a broader category of esotericists whom scholars would call occultists. 38. Following these discussions, Julian Strube argued that Levi and other contemporary authors who would now be regarded as esotericists developed their ideas not against the background of an esoteric tradition in the first place. Rather, Levi's notion of occultism emerged in the context of highly influential radical socialist movements and widespread progressive, so-called neo-Catholic ideas. 39. This further complicates Graaf's characteristics of occultism, since, throughout the 19th century, they apply to these reformist movements rather than to a supposed group of esotericists. 40. Modern usage. The term occult has also been used as a substantivized adjective as the occult, a term that has been particularly widely used among journalists and sociologists. 17. This term was popularized by the publication of Colin Wilson's 1971 book The Occult. 17. This term has been used as an intellectual wastebasket into which a wide array of beliefs and practices have been placed because they do not fit readily into the categories of religion or science. 17. According to Graaf, the occult is a category into which gets placed the range of beliefs from spirits or fairies to parapsychological experiments, from UFO abductions to Oriental mysticism, from vampire legends to channeling, and so on. 17. Occulture. The neologism occulture was used within the industrial music scene of the late 20th century, and was probably coined by one of its central figures, the musician and occultist Genesis Peerage. 41. It was in this scene that the scholar of religion Christopher Partridge encountered the term. 41. Partridge used the term in an academic sense. They stated that occulture was the new spiritual environment in the West, the reservoir feeding new spiritual springs, the soil in which new spiritualities are growing. 42. Occultism and technology. Recently scholars have offered perspectives on the occult as intertwined with media and technology. Examples include the work of film and media theorist Jeffrey Scott and religious studies scholar John Durham Peters, both of whom suggest that occult movements historically utilize media and apparati as tools to reveal hidden aspects of reality or laws of nature. 43-44, Eric Davis in his book Techgnosis gives an overview of occultism both ancient and modern from the perspective of cybernetics and information technologies. 45, philosopher Eugene Thacker discusses Agrippa's occult philosophy in his book In the Dust of This Planet, where he shows how the horror genre utilizes occult themes to reveal hidden realities.